Thank you guys for joining us for the final edition of our weekly recap show. And it's bittersweet. It's not the final not the final episode because we wanted it to be. Obviously, the Bengals season is over. Bengals were eliminated from the playoffs last week when they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. So obviously, we won't be bringing the recaps back until next year when the Bengals are back and fighting for something much bigger than obviously to what today's game was what was on the line for today's game. That being said, still a lot to look back on, still a lot to grow from. And I guess the positive to take from it is the Bengals didn't go winless in the division, right? Bengals didn't go winless in the division. There's still a lot to build upon. I still was impressed the fact that this coaching staff and this team, the players were able to rally around Jake Browning and the team that was out there for the last couple of weeks. They showed a lot of fight. They didn't quit. They didn't roll over and die. Bengals teams in past obviously probably wouldn't have had the same result. So that was very, very encouraging. And kind of goes back to that culture Zach Taylor always talked about that he was preaching, that he was building in Cincinnati. It really showed forth, I would say, when they lost Joe Burrow, and it showed forth again when they lost DJ Reader, how this team was able to rally around. But yeah, there's a lot to look back on. I feel like sometimes every season is we measure it by if you made it to the playoffs or made it to Super Bowl or not. Obviously, the goal is always to make it to the Super Bowl, but I still think there are some things to celebrate. I still think there were some positives to take away. Obviously, there were some negatives as well because that's what got you in the spot to where you're 9-8 and you're not in the playoffs. But I do think that it's funny. I heard a quarterback. I forgot who it was. They said a couple years back. They said, we just talk about we talk about seasons as if they were lost, right? And not every season is necessarily like that. It's not like the Bengals won 2 games, the Bengals won 1 game, or they went winless. They did a lot of good things. They beat a lot of really good football teams this year. And, obviously that's not the calling card. That's not the goal. That's not sort of what you want to hang your hat on, especially because we view this team like a championship caliber team. But I do think it is important to talk about the positives. I do think it's important to talk about, um, things that you could build upon for the future. But before we jump into all that, I want to let you guys do us a huge favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live from the First Star Logistics Studio or our in-home studio. We will still be bringing you live State of the Jungles each and every single Wednesday. That does not stop. There's so much to get into. We now get to go into transition to a different phase where we start looking forward towards the NFL draft and the offseason and talking about things that we ideally would like to see this team do. There are some looming decisions to be made for free agents, and all that stuff is pretty fascinating and pretty interesting to talk about. I want to remind everybody each and every single week that the Bengals have a game. This was the final week. First Star Logistics will be doing a unique giveaway. This week's final giveaway is the opportunity to win a Jeff Ruby Steakhouse dinner with Dave Lapham and I and talk football. All you have to do is, head on over to First Star Logistics pin tweet and enter for a chance to potentially win. This is the final giveaway that we're doing for the football season. It's a really, really cool one as well. I look forward to seeing everybody enter. I look forward to seeing who wins. Tonight it closes. So if you want an opportunity and a chance to win a dinner with Dave Lapham and I, do yourselves a favor. Go enter for a chance to win, and let's see if your name gets drawn from the luck from the pot, I would say, right? But with that being said, Daniel, what are your thoughts on the initial thoughts? Bengals defeat the Cleveland Browns very convincingly. It didn't
Yeah.
feel the exact same. Browns are playing without a lot of starters, playing
Yeah.
without players. But anytime you can beat the Cleveland Browns, anytime you could win in your division and not go winless in your division, it is a positive. What were your thoughts? And also, it's good to have you back
I
here,
know,
man.
man. I'm
You're
excited. It's
finally
nice,
back
nice to be back for
from
sure.
from California, so
Yeah.
it's good to see that you're joining us here. So, what were your initial thoughts on the Bengals victory over the Browns?
So this whole game was kind of something just tying the whole season together, and it kind of made me realize a couple things. First off, my biggest takeaway is the offensive line has made serious strides, and that's a huge thing because I look back at what were the storylines heading into the season? What were the storylines after the Super Bowl loss? What were the storylines after last season's playoff loss to the Kansas City Chiefs? And one of them was the offensive line. There was a stat that came up during the game that this core offensive line, all 5 starters, played every single game this year. And for me, that's a huge takeaway because through the ups and downs, you can say, well, Myles Garrett destroyed the offensive line. There were still, major issues. I look at it in the running game when they attacked it, especially without Joe Burrow in the lineup, the running game looked good. And a lot of that has to do with the offensive line. So that's a huge carryover because that's something we're going to see next season, right? Four of those starters are locked in with contracts. Obviously, Jonah Williams is something we have to talk about. But the offensive line made serious strides. And what is a huge key in order to have year in and year out success? Continuity. And they're going to have 4 guaranteed starters, barring injury in the offseason, on the offensive line next year. So offensive line, that was definitely a huge thing. Joe Mixon, the running game, at least gave us a thing of, hey, you got Joe Mixon and Chase Brown. We're not heading into this offseason like we were last year of, okay, is Joe Mixon washed? Is Joe Mixon going to be on a roster? Who are we going to have? Chase Brown showed enough strides to where he's going to be the change of pace back. He is going to get serious run next year. And Joe Mixon, I saw some people on Twitter, discuss, well, maybe Joe Mixon's gone. Joe Mixon should be out of here. He should want out of Cincinnati. I disagree. I think this is a good spot for Joe Mixon. So that was another huge bright spot. I'm glad to see him finish off the year. So I'm just penciling those guys in. First off, offensive line, penciling in the running backs. And the last thing I'm going to say is the coaching staff, right? We had a question. We'll obviously get to it, but they're talking about should we be concerned because there's not going to be, enough for change in the coaching staff? I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing because the coaching staff we saw at the end of the season was not the coaching staff we were expecting. We were expecting a coaching staff that was stuck in their own ways, a coaching staff that wasn't going to run the ball, and they kind of changed their ways. So that's not to guarantee it next year, but that was hands down one of my biggest takeaways was, hey, the coaching staff, the final 6 games, you went 4-2, albeit it was against a Browns team that didn't play their starters. You finish out the year 4-2. You have the number 18 overall pick. That's fine. Not the greatest, but
Is that what they're settled into?
I think that's what everybody's saying. Number 18 overall. So definitely a lot of bright spots. We'll talk about the defense too. But I was just happy. The biggest thing was the running game and the offensive line. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was cool to see some players obviously hit some incentives. It was a tough break for Trey Hendrickson. He wasn't able to get that sack record, obviously, that he was fighting for. That was always going to be a little tough. But just the fact that he put together the type of season that he had, I think that was pretty good. But to your point about the coaching staff, I do think that this coaching staff has grown up a bit. But again, I will caution, I will say this. It's very difficult for me to see because we won't know until number 9 is back up in the lineup of the actual strides this team has made. Are they committed to the run? Are they going to look to have more of a balanced game plan going forward? We'll have all offseason to talk about that. We'll have all offseason to talk about what is the expectations of going into next year. But I will say this. It was good to see the Bengals win. It was good to see some of the rookies make plays. Jordan Battle caught an interception today. Andre Yoshivas, kid from Princeton, my neck of the woods, was able to haul in 2 touchdown pass catches. So that was really, really good to see. It was just good to see a lot of players start to mature. And it was a lot of opportunities that were given, obviously, to a lot of players with, players being out and injured and so on and so forth. And it was good to see them take advantage of them. I saw Joseph Asai flash a little today.
Yep.
I saw Miles Murphy flash on a couple of plays today. I saw Jermaine Pratt out there. I saw Akeem Davis-Gaither, who I don't expect back in Cincinnati, but who knows? You saw a lot of players make plays today. Mike Hilton looked good. I mean, it was good to see, right? You ideally don't want to give up 2 touchdown passes to backups at the end, especially to quarterback of the caliber of Jeff Driscoll, no disrespect. So you definitely want to see better safety play from the Dax Hill side of things going forward and moving forward. But all in all, man, I think this was the perfect way to close out the season for the Bengals. All things considered, you're out of the playoffs. The fact that you're able to rally together and pull together such a big victory. And we know how much it means to the Brown family and the Blackburns to beat the Browns, especially with the history there. I think that can carry over to next season with a certain swagger. So I've got all good things to say, I would say, for the most part, about the way that the team played today. And there's a lot more to get into. If you guys could do us a favor, if you guys could start dropping your questions down in the comment section, we're going to get to your questions. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I can't wait to hear from some of you guys. I will say any and all questions are on limits, if you will. You guys can ask us anything and we'll discuss and we'll talk about them for the most part right now. Vanguard asks, Malik, are you saying that number 9 will not learn the importance of running the ball? I didn't say that. I said we need to see how they're going to call plays and how he's going to adjust to them calling plays as well, because has the ability, the capability to change plays at the line of scrimmage when he's in there. We don't know. So the offense that they've trotted out the last few weeks was very conducive to help Jake Browning and so on and so forth. Jake Browning is not Joe Burrow. So it's a lot like dealing with a quarterback with kid gloves. Are you going to treat the quarterback like he's basically the knowing all oracle essentially? Are you gonna also allow the offensive line to get into the game, or are you gonna just do quick passes right out the gate and not earn the right, to do play action, so on and so forth? So yes, I guess in a sense I am saying that it is important to see if Joe Burrow has learned from this as well. It's important to see if the coaching staff has learned from this as well. I don't care how much he doesn't like running under center. It's something that needs to happen. It creates less predictability for your team, for your offense, and allows the offensive line to get into a rhythm. So that is what I'll say. The evolution of the running game needs to happen, however that looks like. Whether you need to bring in another face, it needs to happen. So Daniel, I'm gonna let you get to some of the questions so we can answer those, the answer everybody, and hopefully do a good job of that.
So we got a question from Akil the Great. He said, are we doing fan submitted mock drafts this offseason? Just letting you guys know, stay tuned. We've got a lot of stuff, whether it's mock drafts, we've got, the all-inclusive, first star draft we're doing. We've got a whole bunch of content coming. So just stay tuned. We're going to do a lot more interactive content with you guys as well. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, for sure. If I can touch on that, that's 100% something we're going to do. Definitely do want to do the fan initiated mock drafts. We'll be at the combine, obviously, this year, as we are every year, interviewing the players, boots on the ground type stuff. Be at the Super Bowl Radio Row as well. So we got a lot of content planned, a lot of fun stuff planned. Our job don't stop. The road don't stop for us. I would say our season doesn't end until
honestly kind of gets going right now.
It gets going. Yeah. Our season, like, this is when I'm going to miss this place, but we'll be away from home for a little bit. We're about to be on the road for a lot. So, that's going to be what it looks like for us going forward. Our off season doesn't really start until after the draft.
In theory, but even right after that span of a week or two's predictions, whole 9 yards. So, question from Landon Van Steen. He said, think Frank Pollock is gone. Do you think the Bengals let go of him?
No comment on that. That remains to be seen. All I can tell you is that, people have butted heads. Obviously, it hasn't always been smooth sailing, but it's a matter of, can you work through things, right? And that's only a question that they can answer. I have not asked about that, nor do I really even necessarily want to ask about that. But I think that'll be interesting. I think if he is gone, I think you'd get your answer pretty fast. And I guess the next question would be, if he is gone, who would you replace? I mean, who would you replace him with, right? Bill Callahan just signed a contract extension, who's Brian Callahan's father, who's the ideal replacement, who, just so you guys understand the fact, the how everybody's tied in with one another. Frank Pollock was taught by Bill Callahan. So you would think that the Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, Frank Pollock match would be a match made in heaven. I think there had to be a lot of growing, a lot of egos put aside, and I think that still needs to happen in order for the overall betterment of the offense. I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you decipher whatever it is that you take away from that. But I definitely think that there needs to be more buy-in from everybody in order to make this thing work, including Joe Burrow.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, once again, we're going to get to all these. We got 2 questions about the safety position from T. Brookie and Chi. Do you think Tyson Anderson could start next year?
No.
And do you think they need to bring in a veteran safety to add some back in depth?
No. I mean, a veteran safety, I'm all for. Like, remember a couple of years ago, we had the one guy from Atlanta. I forgot his name at this point. He retired. He was here for 1 year.
I don't remember his name.
But it'll come to me. Marissa, you don't have to look up it. It's all right. It'll come to me. I think that you need to see, you don't give up on Dak so just yet. You got to see what you have in them. You got to allow them to get another year in the system, another year as starters in this system, and see how they go from there. But to answer your question about Tyson Anderson, I think that ship has sailed. The guy's been injury prone for the majority of his career. I think for Cincinnati, he won't be anything more than just a rotational piece at best.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Jordan Battle flashed a lot. I think you just need game-changing plays. They both showed the ability to be good safeties. I think we just need to see them make game-changing plays, but I also think that they both deserve a chance to start again next year.
Yeah.
David Weinscott said, "How many coaching changes do you see?" I think Callahan is gone, and not sure Zach and Frank Pollock are on the same page.
Callahan's going to where? That's the question, right? Is Callahan getting a head coaching job? Uh, I would say that this Rico Allen, yeah. I would say that I would say that I mean, this was probably the most impressive coaching job that Brian Callahan, Zach Taylor, Dan Pitcher, since that's how they want it to be addressed. I think this is impressive coaching job that they've done. Is the team going to come calling for Brian Callahan? I just have a hard time seeing it. I have a hard time seeing it, man. I don't know. But I do think that if anybody out of any of the coordinators were to get a call to be a head coach, it would be Brian Callahan. But if you're suggesting Brian Callahan get fired, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is there's about, I think, 5 guaranteed vacancies right now, and I mean, I'm gonna pencil in. I think Bobby Sloak is gonna get hired before Brian Callahan. I think the Ben Johnson could get hired. Jim Harbaugh. I think there's a lot of good
I think
candidates
Jim
out there
Har.
this year.
Let me just touch on this for a little bit.
Yeah,
Regardless of what people's biases are, I think I think Harbaugh is the best coach out there on the open market right now. I think if a team wants to have a championship and build around a guy, um, I think Harbaugh makes the most sense. Very interested to see. I know I've gotten some texts about the tea leaves with Bill Belichick and stuff like that. There's a lot of rumors speculating and stuff like that. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens tomorrow with him. I don't believe anything that I've heard, that I've been texted or been told so far. I've been told he's staying. I've been told that he's out. I've been told everything up and under. So I just think that that's going to be a situation that takes place when I think we all find out together. Um, and I think this is the interesting part. I always find Black Monday the most interesting part of the coaching cycle because apparently there could be an unexpected change in the NFC in the NFC East. So like it's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out and who the and who might become available and stuff like that. But I do think that there could be an opportunity to possibly make additions to the coaching staff to help. Right? That's just my thoughts.
yeah, and like touching back on Bill Belichick, I think he's done a good enough job to where he keeps everything under wraps. I'm with you. I think that we would all find out together. Akil the Great had a question: why are reporters so soft on the coaching staff, front office, and asking insane questions to the players, asking about contracts off the cuff? Why do you believe that reporters are so soft?
Mm.
I think why is I think he's asking why are they so soft on the front office coaching staff, but asking insane questions to the players. Why is there the change between coaching staff versus players?
Um, I'll say this without offending anyone. I don't think that the reporters in Cincinnati are soft. I'll start off by saying that. I don't agree with that notion. I do think that the narrative likes to be controlled, is what I'll say. And I do know that there have been instances in which um reporters ask tough questions in Cincinnati and get pulled to the side afterwards. And, let's just say if they could, they would, which is why I enjoy having a voice outside of the building while also knowing what's going on inside the building, which is why I enjoy it because I think that the impact of me getting my opinion out there and saying what needs to be said is just as important as if I held the mic to a player or coach's mouth while I was in the building. And I think the same stuff could be said because my voice travels. This show voices travel. State of the Jungle voices travel, regardless if we spend time at Paycor Stadium Monday through Friday or are there for press conferences. Voice travels and opinions get out. It's the same way Pat McAfee was very opinionated about the way we did stuff with the practice bubble and how we didn't have a practice bubble and how players walked across the field. Now, was it exaggerated? Sure, but I do think that anytime you deal with factors, like certain teams just like to control the narrative. Yeah, and yeah, to your point, all teams like to control the narrative, but I can assure you, media in Philadelphia, media in New York City, media in Los Angeles is able to ask certain questions without credentials or other things being up for grabs. I'll just leave it at that. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, we got a question about I'm trying to find out who it was from. Ducey J said, who was the biggest Bengals underperformer of the season? I can go first. I think not necessarily biggest underperformer, but I definitely look at just the defensive line, like some of the other guys like Cam Sample, Joseph Asai. Obviously, they're young, but those are the guys I would have loved to see a bigger step out of them. But besides that, I don't really see anybody having a huge. Maybe Cheetah Bayawuzie, maybe.
Wait, what are you asking?
They were asking who was the biggest underperformer for the Bengals. You can also look at maybe T. Higgins, obviously, for what, but
Man, yeah,
I wouldn't say that's
underperformer. I mean, Tyler Boyd
Yep.
was an underperformer. It's hard to say a guy who was injured majority of the season was an underperformer. Osai, of course, was an underperformer. The linebacker unit was underperforming. The safety unit was underperforming. Pass rushing unit outside of Trey Hendrickson underperform. BJ Hill in spots, but underperforming. You know, like it's a couple of spots that I would say were underperforming this year. But I think it kind of snowballed effect when you lose certain players.
Yeah. We got a question about Tyler Boyd. We can talk about. Obviously, you know, Tyler Boyd after the game said deuces or something. Said
He said,
or what did he
all right,
say?
he said, all right, Mr. Levels clocking out. Appreciate you, all love for Houday Nation.
So, what's your thoughts on Tyler Boyd this offseason?
Appreciate you, Tyler. It was great. You know, he did a great job while you're here in Cincinnati. Filled in admirably in the slot receiver role. Was a leader for that wide receiver room in seasons when AJ Green was dealing with his hamstring injury, or wanted out. But you know, just a lot of props to Tyler Boyd for everything he brought. Obviously, this year was rough. It wasn't the way anybody wanted it to end. But you know, we'll remember a lot of the good stuff for Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd gave Bengals fans a lot more good memories than he did bad memories, I'd say. So hats off to him. I think I still think he has something to offer a team. And I do believe that his career can continue if he chooses to do so.
We got a question from Vanguard, a pretty obvious one, I would say, but he said, are we letting Nick Scott walk this offseason?
I had to have a very hard time seeing Nick Scott return to the Bengals. It was just very bad all around, I would just say. There weren't a lot of good moments. Probably maybe one or two plays were good all season. And if you talk about the 17-game season, that's bad.
Jolie Moley said, Charlie Jones and Yoshi look good today. How concerned are you for next year's wide receiving room for the Bengals?
Concerned. I don't know if I'm concerned. I think that the wide receiver, I think you got Jamar Chase returning, you got the alpha male, you got the dog returning, and that's important. I think that's very, very important. You know, I think Yoshi Voss is coming along nicely, but I don't know if you should put that amount of expectations on him. Charlie Jones is a guy that I could see filling in admirably from the slot receiver position. I think Trent Irwin is still a guy that can offer stuff as a rotational receiver. And I think the big question is going to be what happens with T. Higgins, right?
Yep.
Trying to figure out what makes sense, and if it makes sense to retain the services, and whether that be a franchise tag, because essentially franchise tag is very similar to what, like this year, right? Where you're going in as a lame duck. You don't know if a contract extension is going to happen. You know, Dave Mogetta is going to, and for athletes first, going to hunt for that elusive big wide receiver free agent deal. And just don't know if it makes a lot of sense for Cincinnati. And that's sort of what I was saying in my video. I was like, they're not going to do what I want, what I would do personally, but what I would do, I would look at it from just a financial, standpoint. This is the most important offseason. You have the ability to add real pieces to your team that could help take this team over the top and fill weaknesses as well. But who cares what a Mike thinks, right? Who cares?
Yeah, just to touch on that a little more, I'm with you. I think when you look at what is stopping the Cincinnati Bengals from making the Super Bowl, I don't look at the wide receiver position and say,
No.
that's the reason why the Bengals failed this year. That's the reason why they're not going to make the Super Bowl. I look at the pass rush. That's the first thing is you can win a Super Bowl with a pass rush. We saw the Kansas City Chiefs lose that to the Buccaneers because of a pass rush. So when we have these discussions about the wide receivers, it's not the biggest concern in the world. Whatever happens, right? Whether T. Higgins, they let T. Higgins walk, or whether they franchise T. Higgins, the wide receiver room, I'm pretty confident will be in a good position next year because you have the number one wide receiver penciled in no matter what. Jamar Chase. I look at the pass rush. I look at Jonah Williams. I look at, the tight end room. Those, in my opinion, are bigger question marks about this team's success for next season.
I'll say this. Listen, I love T. Higgins. Let me tell you something.
Yes.
He's a guy that I watched back in his days at Clemson. We had a great conversation with each other at the Super Bowl Radio Row. Daniel got a chance to talk to him. Really humble person, down to earth. Love the player. Love the man. He's a good dude. He's a good player. He's a good dude. But you have to ask yourself, right? If you're looking at it from an organizational standpoint, does it make sense to play two wide receivers? That kind of money.
Yeah.
Number one. The next thing you have to ask yourself is, does it make sense to pay a wide receiver that kind of money who has missed multiple games every single season since he's been in Cincinnati? Those are real questions you have to ask yourself, right? It's very reminiscent of what happened when the Bengals decided to, pay AJ Green $18 million or whatever it was, and he missed multiple seasons, right? He missed time over and over again. And I'm not saying that T. Higgins is injury prone, but at some point, T. Higgins has to look out for himself in some instances. And, I am by no means saying that he exaggerated injuries at all, but if a guy hurts a shoulder, how likely is he to fight back, to come back right away? Right? In a contract year or a year where he doesn't have any security beyond that year, because that could interrupt the next check you get. And that's the player's mentality. And that's what these agents also tell the players. Hey, protect yourself. You're going to get a big deal, next year, yada, yada, yada. So it's if you're willing to bite that and be okay with that and know that if injuries and nicks that happen throughout the season come up again, that you might be missing him for a game or two. If you're okay with that, then sure, by all means, do whatever you got to do. But for me, I don't know. I think if you put me in the front office, I'm not doing that. I want 100% commitment. I want you all in. I want you bought in. But I think in the same token, and that's where it's twofold. Are you going to give me the contract that I want? And I think that both parties need to look at this from a logistical standpoint, like a first star logistical standpoint. I think both parties look at it from that and ask yourself, like, where are we headed? Where is this thing headed? Are we with each other long term? If the answer is yes, then sign him to the deal and let's make it happen. Don't jerk around. Make it happen. If it's no, we don't know, or we're not willing to meet your asking price, because make no mistake about it, if the Bengals don't pay him, some team is going to, right? So, like, at the end of the day, it's about you. Both teams need to sit down. Both parties need to sit down. I know it's not what people want to hear, but it's the right thing to do and figure out what's the long-term future for each other. Even if you're going to franchise tag them, which I fully expect them to do, that's just prolonging the inevitable. And again, the franchise tag also comes, the franchise tag also comes with a caveat. The franchise tag also comes with, strings. There are going to be things that you're not going to like. Well, if you want those things, we'll sign me to a long-term deal. You won't have to deal with it. That's just my thought. And I hear what you're saying, Keith. Keith says waste of $20 million for the tag, in my opinion. I think the player is great. I just think that if the intention is not to meet his asking price, then the franchise tag is a waste. That's just my opinion.
And I think a lot of people also took your video wrong because they heard you say, like, oh, it's 20 million. Like, that's like T. Higgins isn't worth that. It's the fact that can you do more with that for this upcoming season than a T. Higgins? Mm-hmm. And that's the question the Bengals have to ask themselves, right? And because T. Higgins is going to get a good contract from somewhere.
Because everybody's saying to T. Higgins, you're a number one wide receiver. Yep. T. Higgins has heard His players, even on teammates, said T's the number one. T's the number one on most teams. So like now is the time for T to get paid like a number one. And what are we expecting him to not to be expected to get paid like a number one? This is his time. This is his time to make real money. It's not like a Marvin Jones thing where he was a solid number two, but wanted to the opportunity to go be a number one and yada yada yada. Even though the Bengals came down to guarantees and all this kind of stuff like that, and Bengals weren't willing to. They offered the same amount, but just wasn't in the same way that the Lions did necessarily. But at the end of the day, this is the situation where T genuinely has the opportunity to make life-changing money for himself or his family and become a number one wide receiver and not play second fiddle to anyone. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see this offseason. It's gonna be an interesting one. We got Bailey Victory Parkway said, "Would you rather have a healthy cheap Boyd or an up in the air T?" So I guess he's saying if you had to pick one, who would you resign?
I mean, Tyler Boyd looked bad this year, guys. I mean, he looked slow coming out of in and out his breaks. It was I wouldn't touch the Tyler Boyd thing with a 10-foot pole personally. I think you can get similar production. I think you can get similar production from some younger guy in the draft from who can offer up slot receiver slot receiver and offer up a lot in that slot receiver role. So, and you obviously, I personally would want more speed out of that slot receiver spot as well. Yeah. I think Charlie Jones can provide that. I think he can grow into that.
And there's also a reason, once again, it's not like the Bengals have all this money. You've got to be smart with your money. So if you can get somewhat production like that from Charlie Jones, go ahead and do that. We got a lot of questions about Brad Robbins, but Royal Flush Terry, our guy, he said punter needs to be addressed as well. Brad Robbins ain't it. Agree or not? So my question to you would be, do you think that they're confident, not what you would do? Do you think that they are confident in Brad Robbins, or do you think that they should bring in competition?
So, when I do speak from basically what I think the organization would do.
Yes.
And there are very few opportunities. Like when I thought, I give the T. Higgins thoughts. Those were my thoughts, right?
Yep.
I'll say this. Unfortunately, regardless of what we think about Brad Robbins, I can assure you Brad Robbins will be back on this roster next year. This is a team that saw how poorly Kevin Huber punted for 2 seasons and let it continue. They prolonged everything, right? And it took them a while, and it's because they're loyal. That's the one thing about the Bengals organization. It's very much run like a family.
Yep.
They're loyal, and it comes down to guarantees and contracts. It comes down to the way that they shape their contracts. It comes down to the hidden shaken agreements necessarily that they make with players, because obviously they can't offer as much money as some other teams. That's ideally what it comes down to for a lot of this. So like, as much as you want to think that this team would operate like another team, right, that's in a bigger market, they're not going to. Brad Robbins could punt for 25, 29 yards, whatever the case may be, for the last 2 weeks, and he'd still be on this team. He'd still have an opportunity to compete. Drew Chrisman played horrible at the end of the year last year and still had an opportunity to be on this roster and compete with Brad Robbins, even though it was a wink, not a real competition for a roster spot and he wind up losing out because obviously the guy that we spent the draft capital on is ideally going to be the guy that wins, right? Wins out the job. Like it's one of those things. Remember what happened? What's the kid's name? Jake Elliott. The Bengals drafted Jake Elliott. He was in a battle with Randy Bullock. Randy Bullock, you spent draft capital on Jake Elliott. Why? Because Randy Bullock wasn't a guy that you were necessarily impressed with, but who wind up winning the job? Randy Bullock. It's one of those things, man. It's, I don't know, man. Brad Robbins will be here next year. You just hope that the guy improves. He showed bright spots this year with a 60-yard punt. He had like 2 60-yard punts or something like that. He showed promise. You want consistency over. You don't give up on rookies too soon, too early. They're not going to give up on him. He's still going to be here.
Yeah, we got a question from Akito the Great. Thoughts on Sam Hubbard? He gets outrun way too often, in my opinion. I think Trey needs a true pass rushing partner in crime on the other side. I can start off real quick by saying, if the Cincinnati Bengals are serious about winning a Super Bowl, I think they need to get a dominant pass rusher opposite of Trey Hendrickson, or Miles Murphy develops into that. But
to a lot of us saying, hey, the Bengals need to go out there and grab a premium pass rusher, because they drafted Miles Murphy with the idea that he turns into that. So again, are they going to get a guy that's going to cut into his time? I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah, I think it was Evan that said it on the show. A guy like a James Houston, like a James Houston type of role where you give a guy literally 15 to 20 snaps a game and you say, "Hey, your goal, we're going to put you in on third down and your goal is to rush the passer." I think that could be a better option if you don't want to go out there and pay a 20 mil for Josh Allen.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, I get it. I get it. This is the part where you have to ask, how do you want to construct? There's many different ways to skin a cat, I guess. Right. And it's about which way you want to kind of go about it. Right. I mean, for me, I'm not bullshitting around. I'd go out there and I'd get a pass rusher, a guy that would change the face of my. Now, Trey Hendrickson has been that. That's the crazy part. Statistically, the numbers you look at and you see what Trey Hendrickson has done, you could say that's a dog, that's a guy, right?
Yep.
But what we don't see is that's it. That's like he's an elite pass rusher. He's made strides as a run defender, but he's an elite pass rusher who doesn't get credit for being an elite pass rusher, because I also think that people don't think he has the same necessarily skill set as a TJ Watt and all that kind of stuff like that, whether it be dropping back in coverage, whether it be stopping the run. I think if you can get a younger guy, because Trey Hendrickson is what 29 years old, 30 years old, something like that. If you can get a guy that you can sort of continue to build around and help Trey Hendrickson to offset some of that, I think that could help. I think this defensive line could be absolutely dangerous, especially in Lou Anarumo's scheme. The problem is, are they going to do that? Because that guy is going to cut into the development or the growth of a guy like Myles Murphy. So what I personally would do is drastically different from what the Bengals would do. The Bengals would be like, you know what? We're going with our guy. The Bengals will see an elite pass rusher in the draft and be like, we're not drafting him. What? We drafted Myles Murphy last year. Are you kidding me? Let's draft that. Let's draft that tight end that we need. Let's draft that guy. That's what they'll do. They'll say, hey, we don't want this guy to cut into this guy. How about when Andy Dalton was here and Patrick Mahomes passed and they said Patrick Mahomes was the number 1 rated quarterback on our board, but you didn't draft him. Well, we promised Andy Dalton we wouldn't draft a quarterback. What? Hey, hands up. I don't know. All I'm saying is it makes sense. The fact of the matter is, I think you should do everything in your Super Bowl window to do what it takes to get a ring. That doesn't mean do what the Rams did. I don't agree with the Rams did where they traded all their draft capital and all that kind of stuff. But if you have the opportunity to get better and it's an obvious upgrade and it makes sense and it's staring at you in the face, do it. Can we all agree to that? You should do it, maybe?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'm with you. I think we got a question from James, right? All caps. So he must be excited about this. He said, where's the loyalty when it comes to the heart and soul of this team, Mixon, who took a pay cut and gave 100%?
Benjamin Weiner music, it was not on Andy Dalton's contract. That is a bald-faced lie. It was not on Andy Dalton's contract. The team, the coaching staff promised him that they would not draft a quarterback. Had nothing to do with on his contract. Guess what? If it was on his contract, they wouldn't have drafted Ryan Finley and benched him on his birthday. Had nothing to do with his family. What was on his contract? That was a Marvin Lewis bullshit decision of, hey, we're not going to draft anybody to compete with you. We believe in you. That was the organization's way of saying, we believe in Andy Dalton. That's what that was. There was no contract of, we're not going to draft a player. Could you imagine that being in a player's contract? It's bullshit.
Yeah. I guess stick on that real quick. Do you think that was the organization, like a Duke Tobin owner thing, or was that a Marvin Lewis thing? Or
for what?
That decision?
That was everyone.
Okay.
That was everyone. Hey, Andy, we're not going to draft the guy that we believe in you. You're our guy.
Yeah.
We believe in you. We believe in you so much. We're not going to draft a quarterback. Instead, we're going to draft a wide receiver who tore his ACL in college, who just ran, who broke the speed, the record, whatever the case be, for the combine record, 40-yard dash record. That's what we're going to do. And then you know what we're going to do? We're also not going to play the guy after he fumbles against the Texans. We're going to put him on IR for the rest of the season and shut him down because Marvin Lewis didn't like the pick. That's what we're going to do. Come on.
Landon Van Steen, and this is a good kind of segue here. He said, we need to build the team to beat the teams in our division. And a lot of other people were saying the Bengals have built their team to beat the Chiefs, but not teams in their division. Do you believe in that, or what?
I think it's a little bit of both, but
Okay.
I don't think it's. I won't agree. I mean, they've won in their division.
Yeah.
They've been winning in their division. So I won't say they've forgotten the division. I won't say that. I just think it's easy to point at that because the game isn't doing well.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. They literally won in the division with those same guys. but it takes one bad or two bad decisions that can make things look a little hairy. The fact of the matter is, you look back, everything is hindsight is 2020. You look back at the Bengals, what the Bengals have done, right? The mistake they made, for whatever reason, was allowing both safeties to walk out the door.
Yeah.
That was a decision that they made because it cost their defense drastically.
Yeah.
They undersold how big of an impact that it could have. Now, I thought Battle was a home run pick.
Yep.
Dax Hill leaves a lot to be desired, I would say. The hope is those two will continue to build chemistry with one another, and through time, things will get better. That is the mistake that they made. The other mistake they made was not attacking the tight end position, right? And not actually fully going in on it. It doesn't have to be necessarily an elite tight end. How many elite tight ends are there necessarily? But you could do something to not put out practice squad players as tight end ones, right? The guy you spent to be the tight end, it was inactive the last few weeks in Irv Smith, right? So it's like, I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
I guess a good segue real quick. We got Mr. Ohio said, is Tanner Hudson our guy going forward, or do they go in the draft and shock us?
Going forward for what? And Mr. Ohio, you're my guy. I appreciate you, brother. I love that you're always in the comment section. I do not mean any disrespect to you at all by me saying this. Going forward for what? He's 30 years old, or almost 30 years old if he's not already, and has spent majority of his career on a practice squad. He showed up in limited spots, but I believe today he finished with 2 catches, for 6 yards?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the future of anything.
He is a good role player. He's probably going to be your tight end. He's going to be a backup tight end that's not a blocking tight end. So Drew Sample,
I don't even know if he'll be that.
You think so, really?
I would remake the entire tight end room. I mean, the only tight end to me that makes sense to come back, and he's not even a tight end, I would look at him as H-back role. And the Hewitt role when he was here is Drew Sample.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in bringing any of these guys back. Mitchell Wilcox and Irv Smith and Tanner Hudson. Okay. You can find another guy that can do exactly what Tanner Hudson did, is what I think.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on how much money and whatnot. But I definitely think I like Hudson. But I'm with
Hudson too,
I know.
But he's 30 years old. And
yeah.
Sure. Let's bring Drew. Let's bring him back. Let's bring him back. Okay.
$2 million. So.
Great. You said what?
But $1 million. What's his contract now? He's probably making.
It's probably making too much. It's probably making too much. Just being respectful, like being respectful.
Yeah. Noah Fant, somebody said.
Bam.
Yeah.
Who said that?
That was
Tracy
McBrady.
You're killing it. You're killing it. I am predicting.
Yeah.
Nobody told me anything. I am predicting Noah Fant will be a Cincinnati Bengal this offseason. That is my prediction. I think Noah Fant, everybody, Brock Bowers, oh yeah. No. I think Noah Fant's going to be a Bengal. I think Noah Fant's going to be done with Seattle. I think he's going to look to go somewhere where he has good quarterback play. He tweeted at the Bengals a couple of years back. I think there were some legs to that. We'll see. I got Noah Fant going to the Bengals, though. That's my prediction.
And he would be an absolute beast. The one thing, he's not getting used. We just watched the game today. He's not getting used in Seattle.
Another team out of the playoffs this year, right? Just like us. But at least our situation is, damn, we have our quarterback got hurt. Their quarterback just sucks.
Yeah.
And you could probably get Noah Fant for cheap. He's coming off of a down year. Yep. They were struggling to get him. How many, Marissa, actually, can you fact how many yards did Noah Fant have this season? And how many catches did he have this season?
Probably
because I don't know how many games of Seattle Seahawks games that I turned on where he was wide open. They refused to pass the ball to him. Wide open, he finishes the game with 1 to 2 catches. And it's not like the guy's just he's not he's dry. He's not even getting looked at. He's not even getting looked at. So yeah, bring Noah Fant down to
Cincinnati.
To Cincinnati. I don't care about Brock Bowers personally. To me, solve that in free agency. You don't have to deal with it. And you could literally draft best player available or draft who the best, But Marissa, what was his yards?
He had 414. 32 receptions.
He had Noah Fant had how many yards? I mean, how many catches?
32 receptions.
He had 32 receptions.
414.
And 414 yards. Okay, do me a favor. How many catches did Tanner Hudson have this year?
Probably close to that. Tanner
Let's see.
Probably at 25.
I'm starting the movement. Bring Noah Fant to the Natty.
Yeah.
How many catches did Tanner Hudson have?
39.
Okay. Tanner Hudson had 39.
How many yards?
302.
Okay. So Tanner Hudson had 39 catches, and he got called up when? After the Bills game? Or before the Bills game? Right. So Tanner Hudson finished with 39 and 350, and Noah Fant had 30.
Almost 100 yards more.
Okay, he had 32 catches, you said? Okay. Okay. That's all I needed to know. Okay. You know what that means, guys? His value is down from terrible quarterback play. Terrible quarterback play. Geno, for all you people out there that told me Geno Smith was resurging and his career was reinvigorated, wrong. The guy's horrible. Sucks.
Can't relax. Not sucks.
He sucks.
He does, what is your definition of sucks?
He sucks.
What's your definition of
Geno
sucks?
Smith sucks. He stares down. Listen, I don't even want to do it. He stares down wide receivers. That's what he does. He stares down wide receivers, doesn't go through his progressions. And we literally talked about this. We saw it when he faced Cincinnati.
I'm with
He's
you.
horrible.
I'm with you. I think he is not a top 20 quarterback there. Mr. Ohio said, what does your contract look like for Noah? I don't know necessarily. I'd give him 4, I'd give him 5, I'd give him 6 mil, 5 mil.
I'll get that boy 7 mil.
Yeah.
7, 8 mil, whatever it takes to get him there. He's a problem.
Yeah. And we'd actually get a lot of production out of the tight end room there. So James Wright said, going into Zach's 6th year, are we sure he is the answer? When he could not win with the kind of rosters he had over the past 3 years, is this surely because he is Burrow's coach or favored by Joe Burrow? Basically, I think he's saying, are we sure Zach Taylor's the answer? Regardless if we're sure Zach Taylor's the answer, he's going to be the head coach next year. And we're going to see, they're still in the window. Even before this season, even once Joe Burrow went down, we were like, all right, is the Bengals window done? The Bengals window is not done. They are going to still have a chance. When you look at the other teams in the AFC, obviously this year sucks because it was like, damn, this seemed like the prime year. Who's to say the Chiefs get much better next year? Who's to say that the Baltimore Ravens don't come down to earth next year? We don't know. So question to you, is Zach Taylor the answer?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. I think it matters is because I think that good quarterback play can always mask up for coaching deficiencies. I don't think it matters. I think Zach Taylor can fill the role of a head coach, and I think he's a very fine head coach. I think that he's grown as a play caller. I think he's continuing to grow as a play caller, and I think that we've seen him get the team there. So he's able to step out of his own way to help the team get there. Yeah, I think Zach Taylor can certainly help the Bengals win a Super Bowl and get the Bengals back to the Super Bowl. 100% I do.
Completely. AKA IC said, defensive or offensive heavy for the draft?
I'm going. You say what you got to say.
No, I definitely think it's got to be defensive, in my opinion. I look at the offensive line, solid. You can go out there, get depth, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th round. That's okay. You got your starters there. Running backs, you're set. First 2 guys, in my opinion, I think you're set. Quarterback position, you got your quarterback. Wide receivers, maybe if you want to take a guy in the 1st, 2nd round. But I think tight end is something you need to get in free agency because that gives you something established right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think the defense is going to be, with Joe Burrow coming back next year, the defense has got to be a main focal point.
Yep.
Chuck said, Chuck 2624, a guy, he said, would pitcher be a better play caller than Brian Callahan?
I mean this in the most respectful way. I have no idea. I genuinely don't know because they say Dan Pitcher's next in line and all this kind of stuff like that. I don't know. So I'm sure. I mean, if you're talking that glowingly about him, then he must be good. Right. Yeah. But we don't know. We won't know until he calls plays, which is do something cool in the offseason. Hey, maybe preseason game, let Dan Pitcher call offensive plays. Let's see what these guys actually have. Right. And see what they can do. We don't know.
Daniel Demek said, what would you say is our top team needs heading into this offseason?
Ooh, I love that question. In no particular order. 3 tech defensive tackle. I would say
real quick,
tight end.
Just because this was a question I remember I asked you, explain the difference of the 3 tech versus defensive tackle. Just okay. I remember I had this question too.
A defensive tackle is sort of very similar to a nose tackle, right? Ideally, a defensive tackle can do both, right? Yes. You're looking for a guy that can rush the passer, that can also stop the run. Nose tackle is what DJ Reader is. He's not the greatest pass rusher. He's a very elite run defender. 3-tech is a guy that can specifically come in on third down situations and generate pass rush. I would think that, So I think BJ Hill was looked at as a 3-tech, and I think he is. I think he's underrated as a run defender. I also think that Larry Okunjobi was better than BJ Hill at that. Like, I thought BJ Hill was the closest thing that we had to a defensive tackle, a true defensive tackle, a guy that can rush the passer and stop the run. That can do both, which is why they were a scary 3-headed monster, right? Where you would have Larry Okunjobi come out. Essentially, and you would have BJ Hill come in and kind of rotate the pass rush with him. And then on pass rushing downs, they would actually take DJ Reader out and have Larry Okunjobi and BJ Hill in at the same time. And it was just beautiful the way it was. Ideally, you kind of want to, this offseason, if you can sort of find that free agent deal that people are down on, people don't believe in anymore, and you can sort of revive his career, that would make a lot of sense. I definitely think you can get a backup 3-tech in there to help, alleviate some of the pass rushing concerns as well. But I think obviously the defensive line looked drastically different when Larry Okunjobi wasn't in there anymore and was just BJ Hill, DJ Reader, and Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, because you had nobody really spelling DJ Reader on pass rushing downs.
And sorry, I cut you off. The other team needs, you said 3-tech. Heading into the offseason, team needs.
Yeah. So tight end, 3-tech, defensive tackle, they kind of go hand in hand. Shoot, I'm not going to say that, what I want to say. Edge rusher. I guess, guys, the defensive line, right?
Yeah.
I think we're looking at the defensive line right now where I'm like, hey, let's do it. Let's get active. Show me that you about that action, boss. That's where I'm at right now, where we need help on the defensive line. And somebody keeps Akila Gray is screaming Javon Kinlaw. It's funny, the Bengals like Javon Kinlaw. They did. Will a team be, has he shown enough to where you can probably get him on, for a lower deal? Is there a team out there that might throw Javon Kinlaw a crazy amount of money? From everything that I've seen, Javon Kinlaw right wrist hasn't worked out necessarily with the Niners.
No.
Hasn't worked out for them, right? But I would love to see a guy like Javon Kinlaw. I know the Bengals have tried literally every offseason when he's available to get Jarron Reed. Jarron Reed does not want to be a Bengal for whatever reason. He's been on 2 visits here. So they have attempted to address the position. Necessarily has not been a player that they necessarily like. So I guess obviously the need has to match, right? But I think Javon Kinlaw makes a lot of sense. I think it'll make sense for his career to sign a 1-year, 2-year deal in Cincinnati or some team where he can reestablish his value in the league. He always has that first round pick tag on him. A guy like Solomon Thomas, I don't know if he's a free agent anymore. I don't know if he'll be a free agent next year. No, he's with the Jets right now. He can make a lot of sense. That's a guy that the Bengals absolutely loved out of Stanford. And if he was there, they would have drafted him. But guys like that, Solomon Thomas, maybe even Javon Kinlaw, Raekwon Davis. Those are some names that I I think could make a lot of sense for the Bengals. It's just a matter, do they think they can make sense for them?
I also look at, obviously, linebacker position is kind of set in stone, but I think we talked about this on one of the other shows. Give me somebody that like an Akeem Davis-Gaither. Give me somebody that can go out there and just make plays. Give me.
You said like an Akeem Davis-Gaither?
Yeah,
because in their minds, guess what? They've had an Akeem Davis-Gaither on their roster. They refuse to utilize him, and he's going to go somewhere. And I think he's going to be a very good linebacker. I promise you, he's going to go somewhere and be like I am not going to compare him to this, but I'm going to say a poor man's because I need to see the potential. But I think he can be like a Dre Greenlaw if he goes to the right situation.
Yeah.
I think if he goes to the right situation, he could be like a Dre Greenlaw. I think that he was used as a Swiss Army knife
like a
at
Shaq
Appalachian
Thompson.
State. Huh?
Like a Shaq.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Thompson.
I think Akeem Davis-Gaither, he was stuck in a situation where he was on a team with 2 very good linebackers. Now, I will say this. You've got some guys coming out free agency this year. You got Kenneth Murray Jr., right? Has he worked out? No. You got some guys, Jordan Brooks coming out this year. The Bengals love Jordan Brooks. He got swooped by them. Would they spend the capital that is to get those guys? Probably not. But if you can get guys that can do specific things, it very, very similar to what we said about the defensive tackle room, right? Like you got pass rushers, you got nose tackles, you got and you have the people that could do both, right? The hope for Logan Wilson is he's the linebacker on the team that could do both.
Yeah.
And you hope that for Jermaine Pratt. He's a linebacker on the team that can do both, which is why you brought those guys back. But I do think that they are playing high percentage snaps. And if you get somebody in there that can relieve of them, that's not Joe Bocci Jr. Marcus Bailey's probably going to leave and go somewhere else and want to be a starter because had he not torn his ACL, he probably would have played. You want to get some people in here that won't be regulated to special team snaps, but that can come in on passing downs, especially long, distant passing downs, and alleviate some of those guys. I'm looking at speedy, rangy linebackers, guys that make sense that you don't necessarily have to be the best in the run defender, but on third down situations, I want to be able to rotate a guy in there that's going to alleviate the pressure for our other linebackers because Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson are playing incredibly high amount of snaps right now. And I think that's why you start seeing them get fatigued towards the end of the season.
And so Matt Lanham said, would you cut Jermaine Pratt? No. I think, and it's like, we have to be real with ourselves. And when you look at it, what were the biggest issues? A lot of it with me is like, it's the speed. Obviously, like you look at Sam Hubbard, can't keep up with the running quarterbacks outside. I think it's the same thing, right? Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson get burnt by the Christian McCaffreys of the world. And if we're being real, they're both going to be 28. Are they getting any faster? Are they going to somehow this offseason have a burst where they go to a camp or they go to somewhere and they become so much faster they can just guard the best tight ends, they guard the best running backs? No, that's not. But they are good in the roles, which is why you go out and spend a couple mil on a guy, a youngster, hopefully that he can even get somebody. The people in the comments were saying, find somebody that can cover tight ends. I'm with you.
I just got a text from Marissa, our producer. She said Solomon Thomas is a free agent this year too.
Ooh.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, you see how good that Jets defense is, and he's a part of the rotational unit there. And for those who have been DMing me, no, we're not bringing back Carl Lawson. But yeah, I think Solomon Thomas would be a great pickup for a rotational role.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think we got a question from Matt Silva. Now that the season is over, do you think it was the right pick to choose Jordan Battle over the tight end Darnell Washington? 1,000%.
Oh yeah.
Imagine what's your safety room without Jordan Battle? Nick Scott. So Jordan Battle at least gives you hope versus Darnell Washington right now. What would he have done this past season? What would he do in the future that's going to completely change or do more than what Jordan Battle did? And the answer is nothing. He didn't really do much with the Steelers. He's not an elite receiving tight end right now. So definitely not. Vanguard said, I agree. We need a Roquan Smith type of guy. I'm with you. Just too much money for Roquan Smith. Ryan Dino said, would you bring in a new OC this offseason or roll with Brian Callahan?
Would I? I would, you know how they look at Sean Payton and not Sean Payton, what's his face? Sean McVay, and they say he has too many coaches. They have he has a get back coach? He had a get back coach. He had a running game coordinator, a passing game coordinator. I would definitely add that to the Bengals team. I would get very specific with roles, 100%. I would, because I think it could help.
Yeah.
I think it could help in this instance. I do.
Yeah.
To help maximize the offense's potential.
And I think you need to find roles because like right now it's kind of like obviously Brian Callahan, Zach Taylor, they're calling plays, but it's like at some point you've got to have very defined roles for your coaching staff. Same thing with offensive line coach. So we had a question. This is going to be a huge topic of discussion this offseason, but Jonah Williams, Daniel Demek said, would you retain Jonah Williams or try to get a bridge guy and draft a tackle early? Let me just say there's two options, right? The Jonah Williams option is the more expensive option, but it keeps continuity on the offensive line. It keeps all 5 starters intact. You're going to pay a lot more, but it gives you the continuity and it saves you the headache because listen to how the offseason plays out, right? The offseason plays out. You got the Super Bowl and then you got free agency. Then you got a month. Then you got the NFL draft. If you have your 5 starting offensive linemen heading into the draft, it gives the scouts and it gives the front office a sense of they can be calm. They don't have to scramble for offense tackle. But if you go the other route, let's say you don't want to pay Jonah Williams, then you got to figure out, okay, you sign a guy for $5 million, $10 million in free agency, and you're like, is he the starter? Then you got to go into round 1. All right, we have to go and draft a tackle. And it just puts you in a predicament. In my opinion, I think it is safer and it is the smart option to keep all 5 offensive linemen and figure out how to cut money elsewhere, like the Tyler Boyds, the T. Higgins of the world. But For you, Jonah Williams or draft?
I think continuity is important.
Yeah.
I think they've shown the inability to draft offensive linemen. I'm sorry, the inability to draft the correct offensive lineman and get
They've drafted offensive linemen.
I think you win with Jonah Williams at right tackle. I do. I would just hate to draft spend another premium pick on an offensive lineman and have the same conversation, a couple years down the road because of whatever reason that there is. I can't speak to how they coach these guys up or whatever happens. Maybe they just don't like the player. I have no idea. But it takes two to tango. And Jonah Williams, does he want to be here, right? That's another part of the equation that we're not talking about. But in a perfect world, I'd like to keep Jonah Williams and have one less position to have to worry about going in to the offseason with. So that way you can truly draft best player available and you're not pigeonholing yourself. But it's at this point, it's going this far, right? It's tough. You gotta kind of go with the flow now and see what comes of it.
So we got a couple questions about Cheeto. Mr. Ohio said, with Cheeto's knee injury, we can definitely see the downplay from him. Do you think next season is a make or break season for him? And also just looking at, are you confident in the cornerback room right now? DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, Cheetah Bay, Awuzie, Mike Hilton.
I'm confident in their growth.
Slot?
I'm confident in their growth. I think it'll improve. I do. I think this cornerback room will definitely improve over time. I just think that the communication, the chemistry has to continue to get better, and I think it will. And you might be thinking I'm wishful thinking, but I think it will.
All right, you want to get to a couple more stuff?
Sure.
All right. We got Sordy said, I appreciate the loyalty of our ownership and lack of being cutthroat in the NFL business, but those decisions hold us back in the long run. I completely agree with you. But at some point, they value loyalty, and they've gotten this far by valuing loyalty. They've definitely made changes.
Well, what's this far though?
And that's the next part is, hey, making the Super Bowl, but they made changes. They're not the same organization now that they were before Joe Burrow got here, and I still think they need to make changes. But
I think getting close to the dance can definitely change a lot of things personally, but I just think it's one of those things where, they made changes, but are the changes enough? And I don't know if there's still some growing pains and things you want them to address, things you want them to get better at. But like, since we're dealing in the world of Bengal Dome, and that's how I'm going to refer to it as throughout the off season, you have to almost go about it until they show you something different. You have to go about it with the way that they have as of recently. Remember, they're 9-8, so in their minds, the Bengals would be like, "Oh well, we went 9-8,
winning record."
So what if we had Joe Burrow? We probably would have been in the playoffs. So let's just run it back. Like that's really the mentality with a lot of things. Was there anything drastic to make them want to change draft? I think definitely the tight end position is going to be glaring for them. But I don't know if there was anything that they saw that was so drastic to the point where it's like, oh, we can't run it back and have the same success, if not more.
Yeah. And that is a scary thing because
it's the definition of complacency.
Because you look at it and say, like, man, because they can look at it. You see all these people on Twitter, and obviously they're right, saying the Bengals have one of the hardest schedules in history. They went 4-2 without Joe Burrow. Who's to say that they even make a splash like Orlando Brown this offseason? We don't know.
I don't know if I see that. I don't know if I see that. I think the best hope is retention for some players, while also adding adding those tier 2 free agents, those cast offs, so those players that haven't worked out. Like people mentioned the Javon Kinlaws. I think that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect them to go crazy because I do think they're going to start thinking in their minds, oh, Jamar Chase's contract is coming up. What are we going to do with T. Higgins, after we franchise tag him or whatever? Those are real things that are going to come up for them. So that's the way they think.
Yeah. So we'll see. We could get two more questions real quick. James Wright said, we need to lock up Cordell Volson while he's still in his rookie contract because he continues to develop. We may not be able to afford him. What's your thoughts at Malik?
We need to lock up Cordell. We're not at the point yet where we can. I don't think so. But I do think that I think Cordell Wilson start into the season stronger than he started, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Our guy Michael Rolfe said, "Thanks as always, guys, for the show. We
course.
appreciate you, Mike." Question about the reserves and depth development
Mhm.
draft picks. Why are the Bengals lacking depth? Too few scouts, wrong people calling the shots? Just curious.
I think it's a yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
It could be all that stuff, right? It could be too. It could be a lot of things. I think that there's no one way to pinpoint it, but I do think that sometimes, um, I do think that could be like sticking to your ways sometimes, right? Can get in the way of you evolving and changing over time. I definitely think they have changed some aspects, but I definitely think they have another level or 3 or 4 to get to. I do.
Yeah. I also look at it like it's not the end of the world. Like the roster is not terrible. There's things that need to change, but it's not a terrible roster.
No, not at all.
And the last question we can go to is from, or we already kind of answered Pete Crawley's question. I guess Justin Jefferson. A lot of people are talking about Mr. Ohio, and other people are saying, how about Justin Jefferson? Is he a T. Higgins contract off? Justin Jefferson, what's your thoughts? Bengals, is it possible or not?
I might trade for him in Madden. Might trade for him in Madden and see if I can pull that one off.
All right. That's
it.
Yeah, we get some.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys so much for tuning into another recap show. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed us bringing it to you. You guys do this favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications. The Bengals season may have ended, but we are just getting started. We have a lot more content planned. State of the Jungle every single Wednesday live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, simulcasted on our channel as well as the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So much content from Super Bowl Radio Row, the NFL Combine, the First Star Logistics annual Bengals draft party that will be taking place again this year, and so much more. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and making this one hell of a season. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the content. Hopefully you guys will continue to watch the content because we have so much that we need to discuss with the Bengals week in and week out. Everything, all things Cincinnati Bengals, we will be breaking down for you guys, as well as getting you guys through the long off season. But before you know, we'll be back with training camp. Joe Burrow will be back slinging them touchdowns to one. And guess what? We'll be looking forward to the Bengals putting the rest of the league on notice and them being back in the Super Bowl, hopefully in New Orleans. But until next time, as always, from Daniel and I,